Okay, so hi. So this is us doing our first safety and inclusion discussion. We have Tineke Zoet has agreed to be interviewed today on safety and inclusion. To say from the start that this is recorded to everyone in the room, and just if you are not happy with this, it will be stored in a Google Drive, but it could be shared by any of our members in some way or used in some way. So if you're not comfortable with that, then please turn off your camera. And otherwise, we'll assume that you're okay with that. So everybody's okay. So just as an intro, so the aim of this, so the Maritime Unity community, so our goal is to improve safety and inclusion in the maritime industry for the future. And what we're trying to take away from this, by the end of each speaker, say Tineke, what we're hoping for is that everyone leaves with one actionable idea to enhance safety and inclusion in industry and practical steps to implement it. That's the aim. So I'm going to go into introductions. So Tineke, can you please introduce yourself, your name, your initial role in the industry, and your current position, please?
Thank you, Gillian. It was nice initiative and glad to be here. My role in the industry was chief officer, my latest role for multi-purpose cargo ships. And I worked through the ranks for that. And I'm now working as a maritime team and workplace coach in the industry, helping seafarers and empathic team leaders approach the industry with more well-being and wellness and more confidence for safety and inclusion.
Okay, thanks. This is the first one we've done. Do you want to say anything? I know you've done loads of stuff in industry. Maybe you want to talk a bit more so we can get a bit more sense of you.
When I've worked at sea for like 6 years, 5, 6 years, and in the beginning of my career as a seafarer, when I came first to shore, I worked my first job was a vessel coordinator, vessel planner for Mitsui Oriental Lines. And there's a lot of containers on board, and you just have this Tetris game going on with stability. And I was called in the middle of the night as well to if a container needed to be shifted, and I needed to change my planning. And that was my first role, and I've done a lot of different type of things. I've been as a Dutch person. I've been graduated both as an engineer as well as a deck officer. So we're dual core trained. So I've been doing sales engineering. I dipped in and out of that and trying to find my passion. I think it's very hard for seafarers to come from sea to shore because it's not just a job, it's a lifestyle change, and I struggled with that massively. I thought it was the walls were closing in on me, and I came to Glasgow early 2009 in my early 30s, and I got a job there at the university studying for my Master of Philosophy in Human Factors and Shipping. And I worked with soft factors, human soft factors as well, and working on several projects with the team as for accident analysis, and that triggered definitely something in me. But I've also worked on my latest official corporate job in e-learning with seafarers, developing resilience courses and anti-bullying and diversity and inclusion, and working with human rights at sea as well. Doing several things with them as an e-learning project leader, and I love that as well. But now I'm a workplace coach, and my aim is to help seafarers and the whole of the industry, the workplace industry, become a little bit of a better place, because I believe in human-centered leadership or empathic leadership. There's several words for that. Kind leadership, all of them. It's a human-centered approach. Without that, we sort of losing our way in happy and safe work environment.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, thanks for that. That was a great insight into what you're doing or you have done. And the next question is, what's your relationship with seafarers and their experiences? But you've already touched on that. Did you say, have you covered it?
Great. Well, can you repeat the question? See if I can repeat the question.
Yeah. What is your relationship with seafarers and their
Ah, yes.
experiences?
Well, for now, it's that the relationship, of course, is that I get a lot of younger seafarer clients from the younger generation, see, that are setting and dipping their toe into the workplace on board, mostly during their traineeship, and um, I work with them as a coach, so they come to me if they're having a difficulty, uh, face a difficult relationship and conflict at the workplace, mainly by the. It's not just the different cultures they work with, but feeling bullied and they don't really know how to deal with that, and then they want to quit. And I help them with some insights as a coach and set productive goals and be able to, change perspective as well. And I go to schools as well for saying how great the maritime industry is.
Okay, I know that, I mean, you've done some work with us at City Glasgow College and the cadets and looked at generational differences.
Yes.
Yeah, which was really interesting. Um, the the next question is, so in your work or within the maritime industry, what does inclusion mean to you?
For me, with this industry, inclusion is based. My view on it is based on my own experience of being excluded. Because
Okay.
you can have fancy uh, wording and titles for it and what does it mean, but from my own personal experience, inclusion means that doesn't matter if what gender, what religion, what culture, or what do you believe in, that you have a safe place where you feel equally valued at the workplace, equally heard and included in a workplace so that you can do your job safely and efficiently. And that is, of course, you'll be happier to do so in a team that really appreciates you. And it doesn't matter in what rank you are, it's for the whole crew. And for everybody that your voice is heard and you have a safe space to like non-bullying culture, non-blame, that you can just raise your opinion, raise your voice, or have a situation of an unsafe situation that you see that you feel comfortable sharing that with a superior. That's inclusion mean to me.
Okay. I'm going off the questions here slightly, but just on what you're saying there, I'd just be interested to know as well, the Dutch culture. How does your understanding of inclusion, what it means to you, sit with that? Like how people, that whole hierarchical thing and everything, and
Yeah,
how's that work in the
with the
Netherlands?
Dutch people, the hierarchy is not really that big. We learn to earn it instead of having it by a job label or you experience. It's hierarchy is not as strongly embedded in the culture as maybe within in other cultures. So when we are on board, we're quite um we we don't really say captain that often. We maybe just, there's first name basis quite easily. And where that is in compared to the UK or maybe other countries, it's much more formal. So that is something to probably to recognize as well, what kind of type of culture you have. You have this Hofstadter low versus high countries
Mm.
comparison table on the internet as well. You can look that up. Like if you're coming with working with Japanese or working with other Asian people on board, Filipinos, there's definitely a hierarchy, and a job title is sometimes and acronyms and job titles is more meaningful than for the Dutch. We don't really personally. I grow up saying that it's not important. It's who you are and how you treat other people. That is more important than to earn your respect from somebody than just a label or job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, because I think that's interesting to perhaps in any guest we have to understand. the cultural
Yeah.
side of how you view hierarchy and everything, because that impacts inclusion, doesn't it? Because
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
hierarchy can be part of the problem there
Yeah,
in some way.
it's
It can create barriers.
yeah, it's a
Um,
personal thing as well, I think. So, but like how I remember how Filipinos were treated sometimes, where like they were lesser crew members than the yeah, the white almighty top top tier. There was some. I've sailed with lots of different type of cultures, and it was most difficult sometimes to get that collectiveness, togetherness as a team, because sometimes you got really cliquey on board as well, and they spoke in their own language, and it's an unsafe situation. Not just unhappy; it's also you create an unsafe space,
mhm,
and it's avoidable by including everybody and finding everybody like value everybody equally. But that's I think it's hard because that's human nature in the same time.
mhm. It's an interesting one. Okay, thanks. What's the next one? How do you do? Can you share an example of effective practice you've seen or heard in the industry that support both safety and inclusion? So any practical, good practice.
Good practice. It's I think for good practice, what I've seen for the really human-centered leadership focus that I've come across, the difference between them and maybe an unsafe situation that's non-inclusive is their active listening. They actively listen and you feel they're open for suggestions and your voice is heard, is not immediately dismissed. That's the worst thing, right? If you come to a new job and you're really young and it's like, oh, what do you know? If they say, like, I have people that just heard them say, what do you know? You're just need to learn to walk before you can fly. That's the worst thing to say to anybody because you're actively saying, just shut up. Your voice is your opinion doesn't matter. First, you need to earn it. First, go have some experience for 5, 10 years, and then only when you're as old and experienced as me, then you can. Then I listen to you. That's an unsafe practice in my opinion because they will not raise their voice or they will when I say raise their voice it's the wrong phrase when they are speaking up to you and find the confidence to ask something you be immediately dismissed. So the opposite of that is what I think is active listening. Make sure you acknowledge them. You might repeat the question or repeat the suggestion, and you just simple thank you. That's a great suggestion, and I will take that on board. And does anybody else think that? Have regular meetups and gatherings, especially maybe on board. Have some, even in a social gathering, and make sure they know they're valued and they're appreciated, they're heard. So I think for the key is not just communication. Communication starts with active listening.
Yeah, I like that because that's it's making them feel valued. But in what you're saying, we think of like of kids and they come at things with fresh eyes, and sometimes like young children see right through things and really simple ways of doing things because they're not lumbered with all these rules and whatever. And
Yeah.
it's the same if you're new to an industry, whatever that industry may be, it doesn't mean that you don't have your opinion should not be valued because you're coming with complete fresh eyes and whether you're straight out of school or you've come with experience from other places, like what you're seeing and how you see it, it also you don't need experience to come up with good ideas. And
No,
yes, experience is a great thing, but also sometimes you can't see the wood for the trees when you've been doing it the same way and this is how it's done and blah blah blah. But so fresh eyes, but I really like what you're saying and just acknowledging and thanking, and whether you use it or not, it's just going thanks rather than shooting somebody down is really important and makes them want to contribute again, I guess.
yeah, it's not just indeed. Maybe if even if it's a suggestion that you cannot use, you want to create the culture and the space for them to maybe next time they have a suggestion. You want them to feel comfortable enough and safe enough to open up and collaborate in ideas for the safety of all and also for the well-being that they can talk to you instead of pushing them
Mhm.
down. And it comes from, for leaders, team leaders, it comes from ego. Of course, so there's a lot of self-awareness needed for good team leaders to have to create that active listening and create that space for suggestions. That a suggestion doesn't mean criticism. So there will be training. I think training needed in emotional intelligence at the same time, and empathic leadership. If you get, I think there are some skills that you can learn and make people aware of.
Okay. Yep. Okay, thanks. Um, if you could implement one small change to improve inclusion and safety, what would it be?
I would just, oh, that's a good question. What do I would?
I think you came up with that question.
I think I did. I think like it. If there's such a thing as we send people to role play and team leaders things, but like it's hard for like rich resource management is a crew resource management. I think there's the key. Everything is in there: empathic leadership, active listening, bridging the gaps between different cultures, yeah, working with your own biased mind. So learning to understand how you operate and have a little bit of an a presence in there for you as a team leader, that you really think about what is my style, what's happening. And it's in, I think we're doing not enough with bridge resource management,
What would
with
you,
commercial
yeah,
management.
so
And it's
how
a
would you,
little bit implemented, yeah, in Helm courses and things, but it's not enough. We should open it up more and making let it take an active role in the workplace as a regular thing, like maybe a yearly upkeep.
okay, okay. Um, so it's not effective at the moment, the way it is done.
I don't think so, no.
Right, okay,
I think
okay.
it's more just like it's obviously not effective because we still have faced a lot of problems.
Yeah,
There's
but more so, but more to introduce that on to have a frequency there, an annual renewal type thing, an annual. Yeah, okay.
yeah, I think that would work. But of course, that's quite hard to implement because
Yeah,
you need to show them the industry that has an impact and effective for the cost. And there's a lot of costs involved and time involved, especially for seafarers and leaders in the industry. So it's getting the whole team together. It's not just a tick box exercise from another course that we have, oh, another course or
yeah.
another e-learning course. There's so many tick boxes and checks lists already, and we don't want to go let them go through that again and again. But there's
And perhaps it's linked to your performance review as well. You know, the outcome of when if it's in-house, um if this is a company thing that you're doing, an annual simulator training, is it essentially with
maybe,
it's a
yeah, and
team
a
for it to work with?
role play basis to see if you can do some role play. It's about like more making them aware of different type of leadership styles that is safe and making a happier crew, because the crew, like there's a lot of problems with unhappy crew and well-being, bullying, harassment. The list is endless and it's not getting any better. So
Mhm.
what can we do? We can first train our leaders to have a different approach and convince the industry that an empathic leadership approach is definitely working. But it takes a long breath. It's not just implemented immediately. It's almost like you need to maybe change lesson plans for young seafarers first to train them up becoming empathic leaders, and have some significant to getting significant impact. Like why do we need it? So it's the whole culture change of the industry. But for like a short quick fix is there's so much, it's so hard. So many things companies are doing already really great work with charities, and opening up the floor for anonymous whistleblowers, for people who can talk about bullying and harassment anonymously, to make them feel heard and they're having a voice. There's some place you can go to, there do they actively know where they can, that there is a union, that there, do all the countries know this equally, that there are websites where to go, the information. This, maybe the UK is very good with it, but what about the other countries? Um, there's a lot of seafarer charities and
I
a
don't
lot
know
of
if
support
I'm
where to go to.
very good at it. I think there's a lot of scope for improvement in the UK.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
the yeah. Okay, thanks. So what I've got immediate actions. What can each of us do now? Suggest small practical change or measures that we can take away, and then it's just open to the floor. Elaine, after that, but
Yes, please.
Tineke, is there anything that we could actually take away right now and do? Can you think of anything?
I think it started like you had this phrase in a commercial in the Netherlands by a better environment starts with you. And I think that's true. If you be more empathic, think about how you treat other people, bring it to your own workplace because the way you behave around others is infectious. You pass it on. Be a better empathic leader, supportive colleague for yourself, and see how you can help other people. What can you do to make your workplace a little bit better today? And start with that.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Elaine, is there anything you want to ask or say here? Sorry to put you on the spot.
That's all right. That's all right. No, just so when you were talking about the hierarchy, I took some notes. Crew have a fear of challenging superior ranks, and it's on land as well, in case they lose their job or it tarnishes their reputation going forward if they were to apply for their next trip to sea. So even if they know that the order that's being asked of them is wrong or unsafe, they'll really too scared to challenge it. And a good leader can come on board and create a culture of safety and no fear. So it's really down to the leaders and it doesn't need to be chief engineer, it can be a first officer or a third, or we're all leaders, aren't we? To stand to do the right thing and to allow cadets and young people to ask questions and not be made to feel stupid. I remember when I joined as a cadet, my chief engineer made me feel stupid. And how had the college sent you to on board a ship when you didn't know how this works or this works, and would tell you that he had spent 2 years at sea when he was a cadet, and just isn't an angry old man. So you were terrified after the first time asking a question or getting something wrong to ever go back to him for something else. So yeah, and also on board the ships we have officer and crew mess rooms, which creates silos and a feeling of them and us. So really, if you could try and bridge those gaps by having it a bit more open, and really it's down to the chief engineer, the captain, whoever, to go and sit with the crew, socialise a bit more with the crew, and allow those conversations to be had over meals. Where maybe there's not the opportunity when you're on the bridge, or you're a bit scared to ask on the spot, but over dinner you might be a bit more relaxed. And then just the last part there about creating empathetic leaders, and that's the way forward. But how do you do it? Especially when bullies and narcissists normally get promoted because they're the type of people who go for those positions. The good empathetic people are often they often shy away from promoted posts because it's it's projecting you up into an area where these types of people are more prevalent, and you're safer with your like-minded empaths down in the lower ranks. So yeah, I think you need to make it so that people, we work in the college, you need to make it so that people want to be curriculum heads and associate deans. It should be an appealing role. It should be the next step in your career, and you should be prepared for it. There should be succession plans. I feel that, yeah, empaths and these potentially good leaders are never going to go for these roles. They're not appealing. So they were the notes that I took.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Lynn. Just, yeah, because on that as well, so how do you create empathetic leaders? And I agree that people who are empaths tend to shy away. But the type, perhaps there's training required in how to, in kind of assertiveness or something about how to do that job in a way. It's the practicalities of doing that in an empathetic, what's the word? Empathetic,
Empathetic.
empathetic way, isn't it?
I
And
think
which
it's
seems
hard.
obvious, but it's actually to put your finger on how you would approach that when if your role models are not like that, you need to see how somebody does it in that way in order to understand there's another way
I
of
think it's hard to make, or impossible to make a narcissist an empath.
yeah.
So you can you change what people are already and make them more empathetic leaders, or is it more that you need to be looking who you're promoting and actually rather than having the skill set to do the job, it's more the softer skills that you need to be promoting. So you need to be looking for the people who are caring and kind and that have followers. Well, they've got a good team, people like them, so there must be a reason that we will promote them. We want to promote somebody like that people want to follow. Yeah, because you don't gain respect because of your title. You gain respect because of how you make people feel.
I mean, does the industry look at all at, do you have examples where the industry for seafarers on board is considering the soft skills of people first before the technical, like your qualification? So you got your master's ticket, you got your chief engineer's ticket, boom, there's your job. You can go on that ship. There's no consideration, is there, in
I don't
recruitment?
believe so.
Like
And
there
if you
might be
find,
some company, and this is where maybe somebody in the group's going to come back and go, well, actually, I've heard of this company who do it this way, because that would be a first step, and wouldn't it? And before you promote or before you go recruiting or when you're recruiting, you're actually looking well, and that sends a message too, is this is the kind of company we are. We think first of your human skill, soft skills. That's what's important, and then your technical.
and wherever those gaps are in your technical skills, you can build on them. Yeah, you can train somebody and you can
Yeah,
mentor someone and you can develop them to be whatever it is you want to be or you need in that role. But I don't think it's as easy to develop soft skills and compassion and empathy.
yeah. I'm going to think in that a minute. Because I guess teaching the skill of being able to reflect on what you've done, how you've behaved is something. Some people do it naturally. Some people need to be taught to do it. But if you can't, you need to start by reflecting and going, what did I like about that, or what did I like about how they do it, and don't like about that. Okay, now I'm going to try that. And in this operation, I did that really badly. Why was that? And why did it have that? You have to that reflect. So you can teach that.
Well, I did a course for project management, right? And well, you go through all the details in how to be a good project manager, how to manage a project, what procurement, like all the labels and you have to write it endlessly. What in what situations, budgeting, what you're going to do. It's all the standardized items, but they don't teach you what kind of leader you are going to be, what kind of manager are you going to be. So you say like you have to teach, can you teach people soft skills, and why not? It's just a question of we used to have classes at primary school in world sciences, and you just talked about things on the news or about philosophical topics. And why not have like leadership class when you're for the younger ones? Because you start with like you show them what type of leaders are there in not just in the world, but who do you want to be? What do you think a good leader is? And you show examples and role models, and you ask them questions. What do you think is a silent leader? Is that a bad leader? Or and you just open them up to the awareness of the different leadership styles. It's not like empathic leadership is always the best one. Sometimes you need to, for some cultures and some places
So
and things, need somebody really old-fashioned, traditional, get a job done things. So it also depends on the situation.
yeah, I think if you start young, you can definitely teach. But I think when you try and teach an old dog new tricks, it can maybe be harder to learn those soft skills where they don't see the. I remember when I was in the electricity industry in New Zealand, and we ran annual turnovers, which was mean the whole plant shut down. We had hundreds of contractors in and do all our maintenance. And I went down to the South Island to find out how they were running. The other parts of the company were running their turnovers because they were more successful than ours. And the project manager down there, the one thing that I took from him, which was the most important, was to win people's hearts and minds. And it could be a simple thing like walking around with sweets in your pocket when you're doing your health and safety checks, and just, or having bowls of sweets when you want people to come in and do their permit checks, because it'll encourage them to come in. And it's these simple things like that. We had daily prize givings in the morning for whoever had handed in the best near miss report or something. But yeah, that's something that I took away with me. People's hearts and minds. It's all about how you make people feel.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Definitely agree.
Hi, Connie. Good to see you. Just to let you know, this has been recorded. So if you don't want to be on the recording, just turn your screen off. But just to make you aware that it is. And it will be on the Google Drive, but it's just that people in the community could share it or use it in different settings. So it's just totally up to you. But just so you know. And just to let you know, we're talking about, so Tineke had spoken about how we need to look at, I can't say the word, empathetic leadership. And we were talking about, well, how do we train people to be empathetic leaders? Yeah, that was what the conversation there was around. But I was just going to come in and say, so you're talking about, we can train them and there's these different types of leadership and things like that. But actually, we do that now. We do that in college. It's part of the course now. But I just find that talking about types of leadership doesn't make a better, looking at it in a classroom doesn't make it has to be practical. And I think you tend to, it's like a puzzle for me at the moment. I'm trying to figure out, but you tend to, you don't really find out what kind of leader you are until you're in a situation, do you? So then that's why I think teaching the ability to reflect and look at how you can improve, like looking at and being able to identify or recognize, like, that's the way I want to do it. I don't like this, but I did it because of this reason. And is that okay? And what could I do better? Like, that people can do, but until you're in a situation, unless, I don't know, you actually are able to run practical exercises.
We do run practical, so with some of the small boats out on the Clyde, maybe maybe the leadership course that you run could tie in with all the practical sessions that we run. If you're in the engine room and they're doing watchkeeping, then we need to have that leadership in there and doing the reflective piece at the end of when they've done their watchkeeping. So how did you find that you treated each other when you were under pressure and there was phone calls coming in and there was an emergency, an alarm went off?
Yeah, there's debriefing and briefing before role play.
But bringing leadership into it, so they have to think, how did my actions impact somebody else when we were in there? Yeah,
that's the way we're going, Elaine, like linking up with and using but as a standalone, any kind of leadership course where there's no chance to actually do something. I've found it's not really very effective. It's just words, and you need to
because we've got enclosed space training as well, so we could, if we try and incorporate that into it, we make sure that everybody has a chance of being the lead person, and then they have to do a bit of a reflective account in the end. It would be good.
Yeah.
You can definitely, there's the same way as coaches, like for specific one-to-one go for leadership coaching. You reflect on your style. What can you do better? What's the person you want to be? What are your triggers? None of the leaders are perfect, and you don't have to be a leader to make a good work culture. It often takes one or two that sort of shape the group. It's not always a leader or a captain or a chief officer or an engineer. And sometimes it's a boatman or a crew member who is having the empathy and a shoulder to cry on, that or is the funny or is the joker of the team, and just makes the atmosphere quite relaxed and that everybody feels at ease. It's the natural leaders that you have to look out for. It's not just a job role. But
I
that's
think
hard, yeah.
I think that can get confused quite a lot in the workplace when people speak about leadership or leaders. They think about this senior management, and they're not. You know, the lead. I told one of my lecturers recently that you are a leader within the team, because when new people start, they come to you because you're safe, and you take them under your wing and you teach them, and you don't make them feel stupid if they, like, because of that, you are a leader of in the group, and people will follow you. If Alex does it, then everyone else will think it's okay.
Yeah, you have
Yeah.
this sort of different types of sort of personality tests. You know, there's DISC, there's the wealth, there's different types of tests to test if you hire somebody new to a team, and you were saying you have a team of five, to make sure it fits the circle. Like, you cannot have two jokers, you cannot have two organizers, and you need people that have a vision, and you need to have people that actually take the vision on board and are actually doing something with it. And somehow you need everybody from one person who from every type of job role that is underneath the role that you are comes naturally to you. And of course, like the bigger management companies, they do have that kind of tests in place that they connect the people together. I don't think they do that on board. Maybe on a mega yacht, they did it on a mega yacht that I learned from the method of DISC. It's called DISC. Yeah.
Yeah, I think with regards to recruiting, people are putting more, or they say it's so important to do that. But see, in an industry or a company where you find it hard to recruit, or when you advertise a job, nobody's applying for it, then to find that right person that will fit in the group perfectly and that has the soft skills and these, like, it's really hard. And often they'll accept somebody for their post because there's nobody else applying for it. So in an ideal world, you've got a massive pool of people and you can pick the right person. But yeah, we don't live in an ideal world, unfortunately.
No, Connie, do I pronounce your name right? Is that you have anything to add? It's okay if not. You can always tap in the chat.
I was gonna ask Connie if you want to answer or not. It's okay. Just if you, because you've mentioned this before, are you aware of any company that considers the soft skills of people they're recruiting before the technical, or on a level, or even considers them at all, or just technical? If you don't answer, you're not into in the recording, that's fine. We can chat after, kind of thing. Okay, is there anything that kind of brings us to the end of that? This is anything else we want to add? So listen, yep, that's okay, no problem. And yep, anything else you want to anyone wants to say, Erin? I kind of just think, do you mind just talking a bit on, because I would just like the rest of the group to be aware you do this thing on generational differences that's so interesting. You did it you came into the college and did it with lecturers, and then you did it with a class of mine, of cadets, to talk about the issues that come up because of generational miscommunicate, understand the way we see things and
Yes.
do things differently. Yeah.
Well, it's a social environment that's important as well, where you get like waves. Every generation has their own unique view of the world because they grow up under different circumstances and different political climate and different culture climate around them. So, of course, and the newer generations are going to do it differently. They grow up under different circumstances with the internet, with social media, with the 9 to 5 is quite old fashioned for them to see is working from home, looser roles. There's more demands from them, and that, of course, that clashes with the older generations. Says what's wrong with our ways. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that will develop with you. We mentioned briefly before with autonomous ships and how is that going to work out. And so I would only suggest for generational difficulties on board and everywhere to focus on what you have in common. There's certain human factors and human elements that we can focus on. We all want to have a psychologically safe environment, inclusive environment. We all want to be happy at work. We don't coming on board with several months with the idea we're gonna suffer in some kind. So we want to be included. That's like human nature. So if we focus on that rather than the differences, of course there's triggers, and it's I think it's crucial to have these issues addressed, because an unhappy team is an unsafe team. And if you cannot get over the fact that younger generations or older generations are doing it differently, and you don't find collaborative ground, it's an unsafe ship. And we don't want that. There's human factors at play.
Can you just give one example of the differences?
Well, yeah, I've been in an accident. Well, I've been on a ship with that. It was a long time ago when I was started as a third officer, and my captain and my chief officer, they were both from different cultures, different countries, and they could not get along to each other. The captain always told me, like, we don't talk to each other, we avoid each other when he's coming onto the bridge, and I hand over the watch. I make sure he'll not be there. He knows everything already. And there was definitely an uncomfortable situation on board. They didn't come to tea breaks, and there was no socializing in that kind of environment. That ship, a week after I disembarked, the ship capsized in front of the coast, and um, the chief officer was found guilty in front of court, and the human element was not really addressed. Of course, they there's some there's some discussion going on what might have happened during that, but the accident was totally avoidable because it wasn't a dangerous situation. There were like several circumstances. It was like mostly due to the sort of a stubbornness of both ships, or a collision of the ships, that neither of them wanted to move, and neither of them wanted to call the captain. And it's like, why? So where I was going with this, that I've witnessed firsthand that, in my opinion, during that time, I knew there was an unsafe situation because the captain and the chief officer didn't communicate together. And that was avoidable. Even you can just get over your own ego as such, because like there needs to be a basic human rule on board of a ship, that communication, collaboration, I don't care if you can get along with each other or not. Communication is key to safety on board, and you need to make sure everybody gets that. You cannot just shut yourself out and then shut yourself up in a cabin and then not come out and think your crew will handle it and don't communicate because that's the easy way out. I think that's an unfit leader for both sides. If it's coming too tough, you need to force yourself. That's like basic rule. But that's a good discussion though, because I think it divides a little bit from the generational difficulties that I'm talking about, and is part culture and as well. So you cannot see generational difficulty on board of a ship separate from a generation, from different cultures and diversity and different, all the other diversity elements is all intertwined with each other.
Yeah, I wondered where you were going with that. Because I asked about that, but now I see. Now I get your point. Yeah, great. Okay, yeah, I get it. And I guess that that's a major
Yes,
instance.
but indeed, my point. Like, I was very young and I was watching, and maybe that wasn't clear. I was watching. So generations, they were two of my seniors.
Okay.
There was no way in the world I was gonna tell them, "Yo, guys, you need to communicate a bit better."
Okay.
Because I was told this is how it works on this ship with my authority. We don't talk to them. Is that understood? So I was in my early 20s. I must have been 21 or something. There's no way in the world I was gonna say anything about that. That was no. So that's a
Okay.
generational difficulty.
But I like how you liked it, but it can't be seen alone, can it? It's a unique.
No, it's intertwined with all the other elements and diversity. So yes, unfortunately, it's not an easy topic. You just
No, and I guess also I guess a lot of incidents that happen, we'll never know the human side of it behind. Like you have an insight because you were there on that ship before, but that's not come out in court, is it? I'm guessing that's like it's more the technical side that's addressed because they can't find out unless people were honestly speak about, well, behind the scenes this was going on. And so I guess there's a lot of that. How much um
No, he disappeared. I think the chief officer disappeared from view, but it's such a long time ago. The
yeah.
things are getting. Um, there is, of course, studies for human elements and underlying human elements. That's my.
Mm.
It's just,
Yeah,
why
but
do we do the things we do?
I mean the for some incidents there could be stuff going on board that is not going to come to light, and it's just seen more as a technical, or failure or something else, or they'll get down a little bit into the human side of it, but actually the reality of what was going on board, they're never going to know.
There's
That's
a lot of things like you don't when you're on board, and there's people probably working in the office and not having that seafarer experience might not understand. You can make up the rules from that end, but once you're on board, there's a shift. There's a different. It's like an all little country on its own.
mm,
You're not gonna make a huge shift happen on board or make your opinion heard if you're still having to sail there for 4 months with you don't want to be the odd one out and makes your life miserable by not being part of the group. We are humans in nature. We want to, we adapt to the group because we don't want to be the outsider, especially not because you can't go anywhere. You
mhm.
can't
And
go anywhere. You can't go home.
if this behavior has, if the person that's behaving like this is maybe in their 50s, for example, it's been going on for years. So it would take then a lot of courage to stand up and expect that something's going to change, by you raising it with the company, because you would imagine that you weren't the first person to try and address it.
It
So
will
yeah,
not happen.
no, yeah, to actually try and call something out like that, then yeah, sometimes like you say, you're better to just stick it out and try and get another job, or just that, well, this is what I have to put up with when I come to work.
Yeah, and
This
there's
type
two
of thing.
sides, right? It is also like changing the culture on board and how that is perceived by the higher management and also the culture of the company. Because if the seafarer don't feel backed up by the company and they see like huge redundancies made happening, for example, on the shore sides, and um if you have the general idea that office can't be bothered, they're not gonna complain because they're not on your side, or they may be afraid they lose their job. Especially for a different culture, it's not as easy to get a job back. Of like keep your head down and just work away, and it's a huge topic. It's not easy.
It's a
And again,
complicated,
if
yeah,
you go back
complex one.
to if you go back to primary schools where you said that's where you want to try and embed the empathetic leaders and thinking about other people, that's where you maybe need to start teaching them about complaining. My kids would never complain to the teacher
Oh
about
no, I would
anything.
never.
They're terrified.
No, no, I've been, I suffered some kind. It could be probably down as harassment on my time at sea, and I never occurred to me to do anything with that.
Yeah, but when we're
No,
young, when we're children, we don't have the courage to call out bad behavior at school, or they're terrified of their leaders, the teachers, they don't want to stand out from the rest of the class. And if you say, well, I'll go, if they're getting bullied, well, I'll go and speak to the school. No, 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 no. They just don't want attention. And I suppose it's embedded in you as a human. So when you grow up, everyone just wants an easy life, don't they? So it
I
really
think
takes a lot.
yeah, I see change in that in the primary school my kids are at, in that they teach um, like inclusion, and they encourage inclusion and speaking up for each other when somebody's not being there. Like so they celebrate kindness and they celebrate stuff. I guess it's yeah. Um,
Yeah, I suppose
it's,
like that, they do call it out, and for
One,
each other.
yeah, and yeah, I am gonna have to go because so I'm gonna have well, you guys stay on, but I need to go just now. You guys gonna stay on, or shall I?
Wait, I've stopped recording then, shall I? Because it's
Yeah,
going to
sorry.
be